It should be streaming now. Well, so as Prepper's perspective, I'm Geordie Prepper. I've got Mooney with me from the Preppers Discord again. We're taking your questions on prepping related subjects as well, so just ask away.
So, Geordie, how has your week been?
Aye, not bad, thanks. Yeah, yours?
Mine's been all right. Part of starting a new job, I've gotten through all of the training that they've set up for me, a little ahead of schedule, and tomorrow I'll be shadowing someone, following them around and learning the job.
Cool, cool. Yeah, it takes a while to settle in.
So, we did get a couple of questions after the stream last week. Did you want to start off this stream with those?
But yeah, I didn't see them. I don't know what they were. So if you know what they are, then yeah.
All right. Yeah, last week, do you read out the username of the person asking questions, or just that there's been a question?
Just read out the question. I mean, is it from the Preppers Discord?
It is from the Preppers Discord.
Yeah, just just ask the question. I mean, if people want to know who asked it, then they can join the Preppers Discord. You know what I mean?
True enough. Let's see. Well, there was a question asked last week about gear and zip ties, but one that I did get after we shut the stream down was how I got into prepping. And it's something I hadn't really thought about before.
All right, go ahead.
So for me, prepping has always kind of been something I'd considered, because not necessarily under the phrase prepping or that word, it was simply, you know, starting from a young age where I'd been bullied before, you know, involved in situations where, you know, I felt somewhat unsafe, you know, learning fire drills and all of the different safety measures while I was going through grade school. It kind of put that into my mind as, you know, these are things that we practice regularly to be safe. And that was really intriguing to me. I started getting into different bushcraft techniques, learning how to make snares, make different traps, learning how to start fires from magnifying glasses and sunlight is where I started. From there on down to flint and tinder. So a lot of my prepping, I guess, it stemmed from just a desire not to be ill-equipped if I was ever in a situation that, you know, wasn't the norm.
Yeah.
And recently that has just expanded into, you know, carrying things on me that are more regularly needed, like medical equipment, low-grade medical equipment, something to, you know, patch up a wound, something so that until actual medical professionals arrive on scene, I can, you know, at least have a shot or give a shot to somebody else who may have been in an accident. And it's just kind of expanded from that base of being prepared for emergency.
So have you ever been in an emergency then?
I can't say, let me think. That's a good question.
Like, have you ever been in a situation where, you know, your heart's pounding, you're like shaking, you know, you've thought, oh crap?
Well, I can tell you this. I mean, I think perhaps the closest, yeah, I've got a couple of incidents. One was a car accident where I ran into the back of someone who slammed on the brakes. The other was an incident while I was preparing for a school dance, helping decorate the hallway and, take down what they normally have up at the school. So we'll start with the car accident. It was actually one where I was going fast enough to deploy the airbag. And if you're not familiar with the mechanism that deploys your airbag, it's actually an explosive element. It's, low grade. It's not like a stick of TNT in your steering wheel. But after the accident, there's a loud bang from you hitting the car in front of you, and then from those airbags being deployed, you smell smoke. You've just had that pressure from the deployment, kind of puts you in a little bit of a shock. And, from there, I guess that was my real wake-up call as to, I had nothing on me. I didn't have so much as a Band-Aid. All I had was a cell phone that I could use to call emergency services. So, I was able to walk. I got out of the car, called emergency services, but that really, for me, that was a wake-up call as to, how real something could be. That wasn't a life-threatening accident, but it could have been. They just happen. It kind of took that feeling of invincibility away from me. And that's something that was very important.
And what was the second one?
While I was in school, so this was prior to the accident, I was actually helping take down what they had plastered on the wall. And in my particular school, they have a hallway where there's a sort of a balcony, but it's just where the ceiling opens up to show a walkway on the second story. They had a few banners hanging from the railing of that walkway, and we were cutting the zip ties off, letting the banners fall so that they could put black lights up, put different decorations up for prom. So I was cutting zip ties with a pocket blade that I'd had. It was a Victorinox Swiss Army knife. It had a larger blade and a smaller blade. I was using the smaller blade because it was sharper and because it was smaller. Poor choice. I would have been better off with scissors, but while I was cutting the zip ties, the blade slipped, went into my left hand. The blade was approximately 1 centimeter wide and 2.5 to 3 centimeters long. And it opened up a wound. It put me in a situation where I would eventually need stitches. But thinking back, I asked my mom, who went to college to be a nurse, prior to this incident, how do you stop bleeding? It was always just growing up, first aid was just readily accessible. So I was able to learn a lot just from being around and asking questions of people. So applying pressure to the wound, elevating it at least above the heart. It just came natural to me. Like once I realized how much that I was already bleeding and that I didn't just barely nick myself, it was immediately just my right hand came over and slapped onto that wound, applied pressure, and I went to the bathroom over a sink so that, any blood coming off before it had time to coagulate and kind of stop, would be contained, and I wouldn't, be putting anybody else in a position to clean up from my mistake, if that makes sense.
So this was, it was bleeding then. It was obviously quite a bit.
It was quite a bit of blood. I found out later, after getting stitches, that I actually done some damage to a nerve. The blade actually went in. It looks like a scar that just runs parallel to my thumb. But if you hold your hand out in front of you, where your pointer finger, index finger, and your thumb make an L, and just kind of with the index finger of your other hand, just ran it alongside your thumb, where that base joint is. It went there into the webbing of the thumb and was quickly pulled out as I realized, something had happened. It was very quick. Just in out, realized that something was wrong. And then immediately I had pressure on it, because I was, honestly, the feeling was embarrassment. I'm not sure if you've been in that situation where you've made a mistake like that before, but I just felt so embarrassed, because floor would need to be sanitized and cleaned, and I caused an inconvenience.
And what offer of help did you get from anyone? Like, was anyone like?
None, actually. That's why I'm so happy that I had the experience that I did growing up with somebody who was trained in the medical field, and just the being as curious as I was and asking all these questions, because you bring up a good point. When that happened, all I heard was, "Is that blood?" And I was already taking care of it. I heard that as I was on my way to the restroom with my, my right hand putting pressure on that cut. So
yeah, it's funny. Yeah. Like when people see someone injured or anything, they always seem to ask the obvious questions, like, "Is it blood?
Right.
Do you need help?" Yeah, I think it comes from just people don't know what to do in situations like that. When someone's injured, they just have no clue. Like we were talking about last week, first aid courses are readily available here, but not many people take them. And not a lot of people want to get involved as well.
Right, and that's the thing. Sometimes, whether it's that people haven't thought about what can happen, or they have thought about what can happen, they don't want to be a part of it. They don't want to be seen as, God forbid somebody lose their life after an accident when somebody was trying to help them. I'm not sure how good the Good Samaritan laws over in, you'll have to forgive me, Britain?
Yeah, well, if someone is, like if you're a first aider here, like you're not in the actual like medical profession, you're just like a first aider, right. Like I'm a first aider. If you come across somebody who's injured, then you're not obliged to go and help them.
Right.
It's up to you whether you do or not. The only instance I can think of that we were taught during the first aid course is if you find someone and you're looking for like their medication or anything, because somebody, like say during the summertime, if someone has had an anaphylactic shock from getting stung by a bee and they carry an EpiPen with them, and if you find the EpiPen, you know, and they pretty much, if they're still able to indicate, oh, you know, I've been stung by a bee, then you would give them the EpiPen.
Right.
I mean, if you find an EpiPen on them, you would probably, I mean, we were told that if someone has an EpiPen on them and they're in a medical situation, then you would just give them it. But they did cover things like if you find a do not resuscitate card on them and things.
Yeah.
I'm not, I can't remember really what he said about that, but I think even if it says do not resuscitate, if you don't find that do not resuscitate card on someone and you go ahead and give them CPR, then I'm not sure actually what would happen after that, because I mean, they're going to be pretty pissed that their wishes.
Yes, they are.
They're going to be pretty pissed that their wishes weren't respected. But then again, if they, like, say if they didn't have it on them at all, then there's no way that you could know that you weren't to resuscitate them.
And there really isn't.
Yeah, there's no way you can know. If somebody's just flat out unconscious and they've got a do not resuscitate on them and they just forgot it, there's no way that you can know about it, really. It's really down to yourself here, as far as I know. I mean, I might look this up some more, actually, now that you mention it, but it's really just down to you, whether you want to help. I mean, it would be pretty cool if someone, like, if you were on a deserted road and you came across someone, you know, there was little chance of anyone else coming across that individual. It would be pretty cool of you just to keep on going. But say, like, if somebody took a trip down the high street, then, you know, here, there would be at least 5 or 6 people that would come and help you out. So...
Right. And that brings up an interesting point. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, you know, there'll be so many other people helping that, you know, it's, you know, and plus if you're in it, if the patient's able to just to say, oh, I don't need your help, then, you know, you just back off.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say that does bring up an interesting point of the do not resuscitate and having to find that card on them. In the United States, there was actually, oh my gosh, I believe it was the United States, there was a case of a man with a tattoo on his body. Clearly, I believe it was on his neck. It said, do not resuscitate.
I think I might have heard about this.
Yeah, there was no legal precedence for a tattoo. It was actually, they were putting it into, you know, throwing it around in court and legal systems, whether that should be accepted as a legal form of submitting a do not resuscitate request. And I'm not sure how I feel about that because, you know, did somebody get that? Like, is it like the guy in Grand Theft Auto who has Trevor, who has the, you know, dotted line tattoo across his neck and it's cut here? Is it just kind of a something to show your mettle, like, do not resuscitate. If I'm dead, I'm going to be dead. It's hard to know. As far as Good Samaritan laws, what I was more referring to was the protection that you're afforded as a first aider when you help somebody. There are some countries, certain places in China, I believe Japan, where Good Samaritan laws are just awful. Meaning, say, for example, you hit somebody with a car. Well, if you get out and try to help them, say you're doing something as simple as bandaging their forehead. Say they've got a nasty cut on their forehead and they're losing a lot of blood. You can be in an incredible amount of trouble. You can be charged with murder if that goes septic, even if you were doing it in good faith that would help. So I was just more curious of, is it like in the States where so long as you're not doing some crazy operation uh, that you're protected? For example, doing bandages, maybe washing the wound out with some sterile water, or something more like in Japan where you have to be very incredibly careful so that you don't end up facing.
I'm just looking it up actually. It says here, in the common law of England and Wales, there's no criminal liability for failing to act. So you can just walk on by in the event of another person being in danger. However, there's exceptions. If there's an assumption of responsibility by the bystander. So I guess they're talking about private land there. If someone's on your land, then you've got a duty to take care of anyone who might be reasonably using it. So if it's like a right of access way or something and someone has an accident there, then you've got to take reasonable measures to reduce the chances of injury from people who may use your land.
Right.
Criminal liability would be imposed on the bystander for failure to take action in those instances.
Okay.
It seems that unless you did something negligent, like say if you tried to do a procedure that you'd only seen on television, which would be reckless, then I think then you would be in trouble. So it seems that here you're not going to get prosecuted for failing to act. You're very well protected actually. It's only if you were if you were helping someone and you did something completely reckless, then which might have endanger them further, then that's the only that would be the only problem.
Yeah, that's very good. That's very interesting. I know those laws, I don't know what they're called over there, but in the States they're referred to as Good Samaritan laws. They were actually created to kind of make people encourage people to help bystanders who'd been injured, because previously, I mean, even something like a bandage, if it ended up getting infected, and it was somebody's understanding that they did everything to procedure, and then that wound got infected under the covering, then it used to be that somebody would be held responsible for rendering help, and then that wound getting infected, they would be, if it led to death, possibly charged with manslaughter at the least. So
yeah, I mean they're designed to get people to not fear any sort of prosecution if they do something, if they do help someone. Yeah, I think it's definitely, if you're into first aid or if you take a first aid course, then they do tell you, well, they should tell you what the Good Samaritan things are, or the equivalent in whichever country you're in. But if you're a first aider, then you should definitely know what they are and what the consequences might be. But then, if you're taking a first aid course, then I don't think you're gonna try anything reckless, because you've taken the first aid course so that you know how to attend to someone.
I would hope. I would hope.
Well, I'll give you one example.
That would be the understanding.
I'll give you one example that the instructor was on my first aid course. He said that there was a woman, because when you go on the first aid courses here, well, certainly with this guy who was instructing us, because he was ex-military, and he was a medic, and he patched soldiers up and everything. When people came onto his course, he's looking at you to see whether you're suitable to be a first aider. And I think that is probably the case whichever place you do it at. They're looking to see if you've got the right attitude to be a first aider. And there was a woman he was saying, because he said, if you're not suitable, I'll just ask you to leave. You'll get a refund. But if you're not suitable, then at any point during the instructions, you'll just say, you're not suitable to be a first aider. So anyways, there was a woman that was on the course, and he was, because he asks you questions, he'll say, what would you do if? So he was asking, like, would you do if your child was choking, or you come across a child that was choking? Or it could be anyone, really. It doesn't have to be a child.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman said, oh, well, I would just cut their throat open and stick a pen down the windpipe so that it gets...
Serious?
Yeah, so it gets past the blockage,
Oh.
and they can start breathing again. And he said, like...
Oh, my.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, because... And he says, well, if that's what you're going to do, then you can just leave now, because he says, if you attempted to do that, he says, I guarantee you'd kill them. And she said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, there's so many blood vessels going through the neck. Any one of them cut, you're talking making the situation much, much worse. But she didn't get it, and I think she left, actually. I think he just said you're not suitable, and just showed her the door.
I believe that the procedure she was describing is actually tracheotomy, and it can be useful. What it's used for is if somebody's airway is swollen shut by some means or another, whether it's anaphylactic shock, anything else. And it's right, the idea is right above that collarbone. Not gosh, it's at the base of the neck in front. If you draw a line up from the sternum, you meet a spot where the flesh is kind of soft. The idea is that you create an opening there and then keep it open to get past a swollen throat, a throat that's swollen shut and is not allowing air to pass. But you have to be sure that they're not choking on food first. If it's just a moth, or if they're choking on food, by all means, you can't. And a first aider should never, ever try to perform a tracheotomy. So I'm very glad that he removed her from the class.
Yeah, because
wow.
Well, you just don't attempt it. You wouldn't even think to attempt it. It's just not something that you do. The professionals, they train, for years to do these sorts of things. And but yeah, you've got to have the right mindset if you're a first aider, I guess the moral of the story is.
Right.
So what's been happening in the United States recently?
Well, as far as the United States goes, this will be interesting. I know, oh shoot, I may have talked about this a bit a while back on the last episode, but I know the state I live in, Ohio, is considering reinstating on a state level an assault weapons ban. And
Oof.
yeah, basically that would get rid of any weapon capable of receiving 10 or more cartridges at once, be it handgun, hunting rifle, old military carbine. There'd be so much that would just simply be, not allowed anymore.
So there'll be lots of people moving out of that state then.
I don't know if there would be lots of people moving out of the state or lots of people whose guns mysteriously just went missing, if you know what I mean. I've heard that that's the story that a lot will tell.
Right, so
state, Yeah,
but these people trying to bring in that
take 'em.
these people trying to bring in that ban, they've obviously never heard of the Second Amendment then, have they? Or they haven't read it.
Well, the problem is that a lot of the people who are pushing for weapons bans and restrictions on what can be bought, their arguments harken back to the idea that they think that the Second Amendment was created simply for the military. They use the wording in there to say, oh, a well-regulated militia. Well, you're not a militia. So they kind of use that to say just average citizens shouldn't be holding arms. And they also try to say that the Second Amendment only covers the musket, when at that time there were actually, early forms of revolvers, very rudimentary. You'd have more, it'd be more like a cycling musket where you could load more than one barrel, basically, and then have those, spin around and fire them off.
Both of those gun grabber arguments have been totally dispelled years ago. Saying that it was only for them. It's just ridiculous. Like, I mean, the first point, they're saying that, it's only for if you're in a militia. Well, that's bullshit. It says the right to the shall not be the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. They never read the next bit.
Right.
And they say, I've heard this before as well. Like, they're saying, oh, they couldn't have when the Second Amendment was brought in, they couldn't have imagined like high capacity, rapid rate of firing guns. But that's also been completely it's also been completely blown open, that argument, because there was a rifle until the mid 1900s, mid 20th century or something. It had the fastest firing rate of any gun, and it existed before the Second Amendment. So
exactly,
saying that they couldn't have envisioned rifles firing as many rounds or at the rate that they do is a nonsense argument, because there was guns that could actually do it back then.
And that's exactly what people, even those who know about it, I've seen them say, if they can't beat one argument, they'll fall back to the other and say, well, no, it's a militia's responsibility to carry weapons, not the average Americans. And here's the thing about that. Anybody with a gun who was willing to fight the British instantly recognized as militia on the spot. So under that ground, really anybody with a weapon who was willing to fight a tyrannical government, organized or not organized yet, they fall under that blanket of militia. And I've actually got it pulled up here on my tablet, the Second Amendment. You had it right. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
The gun grabbers always omit that last bit.
Right. To keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. But what they don't acknowledge is that the Second Amendment exists to protect the rest of them, the freedom to speech, to, assemble peacefully, the freedom of press, everything. And it's funny, they always make the argument that it's either only the militia's right, only for the government or that it's only applicable to muskets, but you don't see anybody saying that the First Amendment right only applies to those those paper presses that existed when the amendment was written.
Yeah. It's like
They
yeah,
they want
freedom of the press. Yeah, like an actual printing press. Unless
Yeah.
it's written, unless it's published by a press that doesn't run on electricity, say. That's
Right.
like it's like saying that really, like the First Amendment only applies freedom of the press if you actually, put the letters and make like the old templates and everything. That's
Right.
basically it's the same sort of thing. That's their sort of thinking. If it was written at the time, then it should only be applicable to what existed at that time, which is a
Right.
ridiculous argument, really. I mean, it's the same here with the British Constitution and things like that. They always argue about things and try to twist it around, but these things were written very, very simple and easily so that there couldn't be much of an argument about it. Yet they always try and make an argument about it.
I've heard that they're trying to dispute the soap. Forgive me if I botch this. I believe it's called the soapbox law, which, to my understanding, is almost the last bastion of, free speech, the right to assemble that exists in European countries. Is that something that's been popular the past couple of years?
Don't think I've ever heard of that.
I may be thinking Canada. That's my oh man. But I suppose that's about it as far as what's going on in the States. How about Britain?
Well, we've got that whole nerve agent Russia thing going on at the minute.
Oh, really?
This ex KGB
Yes.
spy, he was attacked in a town in England and with a nerve agent. The nerve agent was a Russian one. And so obviously, they're saying, oh, it was Russia. And they're basically completely kicking off with Russia about it. They're expelling like 23 diplomats next week. They've setting up like a specialist chemical unit at Porton Down, which is like, it's not really our version of the Pentagon, but it's like a well-known military base here in England. So they're setting up a special chemical nerve agent centre there, spending 50 million quid, which is ridiculous because they always say that we're broke. Yeah, they just magic up out of nowhere these funds, whenever these sorts of things happen. Which, of course, they can magic up the funds because, they've got a private central bank that's absolutely delighted whenever they want to spend cash because, they get they can charge them interest on it. So they're going to be happy. But yeah, there's a whole nerve agent Russia thing going on here at the minute.
I have
But
no idea. I may not have. I may have missed that in the news.
well, possibly. I mean, it's happening in America right now, and it like Russia seems to be at the behind everything at the minute, don't it?
There were a lot of people that certainly, whether Russia is behind these things that they're being blamed for or not, there are certainly people that would benefit if Russia was the culprit. So I'm kind of trying to keep an open mind about it because I don't know for sure, and I don't believe the people who spout. I mean, some of it's nonsense. I can admit some of the claims against Russia, there's not much evidence for it, and they seem to be claims that would put a certain individual or an individual party at an advantage. So I'm holding off to see how those investigations come back. But Russia is the talk of the town these days, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Like, these events happen and they just immediately state who did it, who's behind it. You know, they never actually show their investigative process and how they actually ended up on that conclusion. And yet the fake news sites like BBC and all that sort of mainstream fake news, they'll always put the pin on someone instantly. So I mean, that's why I don't watch fake news, you know, like BBC, because they never show the workings, they never show how they got to that conclusion, the evidence. There's much more independent journalists, you know, because it's their job, they show all the evidence, they show and they name their contacts. It's like on the BBC, you know, they'll say, oh, a contact in such and such a department said this. Well, they never name them. So it could be anyone. I mean, they might have asked the cleaner, the janitor. He might have given them some information. You just don't know. And then you don't know what their credentials are, because they'll never show them.
Oh my goodness. I'm actually on BBC.com right now. They've actually asked Trump to speculate and taken a comment. Let me play it here. Let's see. All right.
Well, don't play it so we can hear it, because I don't want to.
Okay. I'm gonna pause that there. Let's see.
Well, Trump's banded in with and said, oh, you know, he's going to support what Britain's actions are against Russia, and I think America's already sanctioned some Russians because of it. But again, like, I mean, what's Trump seen that's made him definitely decide, or, you know, there's no doubt in his mind that it was Russia? I mean, probably nothing. As always with these things, I think there's something else going on. It was either, you know, to bring something, like you said, somebody's going to take advantage of and is going to benefit from, like all these sorts of things. It's like, because they work on problem, reaction, solutions. So a problem happens, they offer a solution, which is what they wanted, but they wouldn't have had that solution unless the event occurred. People always take advantage of things.
Yeah, but talking about the chemical attacks, that brought up a question from me. Do you have any sort of countermeasure or actions that you might take if you found yourself the victim of a nerve agent?
If I was the victim of it,
right. If this becomes regular.
Well, I mean, if I'm out and about if I think I'm going to be out from home for over an hour, I mean, I take a gas mask with me, but it's not, the filter I take is not really rated for chemicals or biological or radiological or nuclear. It's just a basic particle filter. But I might have to fit I might have to fit a full-on CBRN filter after this thing. But again, I'm not going to walk around town with a gas mask on us all the time. So a nerve agent, if it acts fast enough, once it's applied, then, is there anything you can do? I don't know, but I'm actually going to be talking to Prepper Veteran next week on a Prepper's Perspective. We're going to do a CBRN special episode.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to be talking about all of this. But yeah, I know that there is nerve agents which act very, very quickly, and then there's others which, you don't even know that you've been exposed to it. They're a lot slower. So would we really know with some chemicals or, biological or other things released? When would we know about it? Probably when we're coughing up blood and our insides are turning to liquid.
Man, that's something that's hard to think about, but oof.
I think I'm going to change to a portable escape mask, actually, because something that's a lot more compact.
That's a good idea.
It'd be a one-use only deal, but I think as an EDC, it's a much better option because it's a lot smaller.
Right.
And some of these escape masks, they're rated against chemicals and everything, if even for only a limited time, and they are one use, but they're just much more easier to carry. They're a lot smaller. They'll literally fit in your pocket. Whereas the mask I take with me, I've got to have it in a bag. But, having it in a bag is a risk because, if you lose your bag or if somebody takes it from you, then, your protection's been taken from you as well. So,
right.
I think I'm going to change up my EDC at some point. But then again, I think the risk is still very, very low.
You still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can. For a second, it just went quiet. I was nervous. I thought my connection had given out again. I was on Amazon just now, just to see if it existed. I'd spoken to somebody former military about chemical agent. And they actually have available for 50 United States dollars on Amazon a decontamination kit. It's basically, from what I can see here, a sponge inside a packet that contains the active agent that would decontaminate your skin.
Yeah, it's probably just Fuller's Earth. You can just get Fuller's Earth for much cheaper than $50. That's the active. Fuller's Earth is the actual decontam thing that they use.
Huh.
So just get. I have like 3 bags of Fuller's Earth. Not very big bags. You're talking just 1 kilogram. But it's used for lots of things, Fuller's Earth. But decontamination is one thing it's used for. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something. I'm not sure what Fuller's Earth is effective against, but this particular item works against. There are a few of these that I won't say because I'm not familiar with them. I don't want to botch the name, but sarin, soman, BRVX, mustard gas, and the T2 toxin. It's apparently a one-step thing. How do you go about using the product that you mentioned in the event? Is it require any preparation before application?
Well, Prepper Veteran did a video on it, how to properly decontaminate yourself if you've been exposed to any agents.
Oh, very good. I'll have to look at that. I didn't know he'd already done a video about it.
Yeah, he did a CBRN series of videos, so I think they're going to be well worth watching if anyone's in Britain at the minute. I mean, like I said, I mean, the risk. This was obviously someone targeted directly for who they were.
Right.
You know, whoever perpetrated it, they did it for who they were, you know. They targeted them specifically. So it's unlikely that people are going to run down the street waving a bunch of nerve agent around, you know, trying to harm people. The risk of that is obviously really, really low. But if we're prepping, I mean, preppers have gas masks, you know, they have CBRN suits. You've got to know how to decontaminate yourself just in case. So these sorts of things are well worth looking at and knowing.
Very much so, I agree. So what was that chemical one more time? The active agent, so I can take note of that.
To decontaminate?
Yeah.
Full reserve. Or it's called it usually goes by another name though. Something bentonite clear.
Well, I'll see about just searching that first word. I'll probably get a result on that.
Yeah, bentonite. It's
bentonite.
It's some. I think it's some. Hang on a minute. Let me just check. Bentonite might be something else. No, I think it is bentonite. I think it's also known as bentonite, but it's also known as Fuller's Earth. But it's used in like cat litter and things like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's absorbent. It just sucks up anything it comes into contact with. That's why it's used as like a decontamination thing, because it just, you know, if you like your skin's exposed to anything, just put some Fuller's Earth on it and it just sucks up anything that it comes into contact with.
That's very good information to know. So we've got attempted gun control in the United States, Russian spies in Britain. Is there anything else to watch out for lately?
I'm not really sure about anything specific. Just the usual stuff, you know. There was a podcast from Armed Rogue. She's changed her channel name now. It's Rogue Preparedness, but she was talking about situational awareness. But so it's really just a case of maintaining your situational awareness, really. And if these things are happening, just check your sources. You know, I mean, people are going to say it's someone, but you know, is it really? And you got to think, well, you got to check their facts and look into things yourself, because obviously you got to prep for these things, and we do prep for them. But you know, if something happens, you want to adjust your preps to maybe a new kind of immediate threat that might be possible. So people in Salisbury, I mean, I bet we see an article regarding gas mask sales in Salisbury and CBRN suits. I bet we see some sort of article on that at some point. Just anything like surgical masks or something like that. There'll be somebody watching the sales of that, and we'll see an article where, because they were saying that people were staying at home, they weren't going into the town where it happened. Wow. Because they were afraid in case someone else gets exposed to this nerve agent or attacks someone else,
Right. And the nerve agent, we're talking about Russia, it's quite how to say this? Quite disappointing, I might say. I was just flipping through news articles just now to see if there was anything else going on in the United States that I could talk about. People are still after Trump-Russia collusion.
Oh God, that thing's been that'll be going on until he leaves office.
Years, I'm sure.
It's ridiculous.
And all they've got, this is a New York Times article. Mueller subpoenas Trump organization demanding documents about Russia. That's the title. But from what it seems, they're not even sure of the terms of the subpoena that they are talking about. The breadth of the subpoena, I'm quoting, the breadth of the subpoena was not clear, nor was it clear why Mueller issued that instead of simply asking for the documents from the company. Are we really, I mean, it's such a vague breadth of, it just sounds like bad journalism to me, honestly. They're not sure of what the subpoena is about. They don't know why he didn't just ask for the papers.
Well, I mean, it could be bad journalism, but usually in things like this, they'll just rush like a blank subpoena through a judge just so that they've granted it, and then they'll fill it out later with the specifics, which they shouldn't be allowed to do. If you're going to take something to court, then it should be pretty much complete so that a judge can make a good informed decision on it. But they've got these people in their back pockets, so they'll just rush something through, and then the defendant will have to cobble something together. Probably have no information at all about what they're going to have to defend themselves against. So they'll probably flesh it out later.
Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, recently I guess he's had a subpoena that ordered the Trump organization to hand, quoting, all Russia-related articles over so that he could continue investigating. Yeah, it just seems dirty. I mean, how long was Obama in office before they dropped the birth certificate thing? That was just angry people, that were like, we got another Democrat in office. Shoot. They were like, do we even know if he's American? Doing that deal. By year 2 at the latest, it wasn't in the news anymore, and I wasn't hearing it from people around me. I know that's only anecdotal. I can't say that nobody was still on about it, but as far as media coverage goes, 2 years in, it was done. And for the rest of his 8 years, it was, he's the president now. What are we going to do about it? Man,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's they just cling on to things for far too long.
mhm.
I think they just keep it in people's minds in the hope that the opinion might swing, the public opinion might swing the way that they want it to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's you've seen media in recent times, and when I say recent, I mean almost since 2011 become a sensationalized, basically dessert. You know, it tastes good, people get what they want from it, but it's not substantial. It's it's not intelligent anymore.
Oh yeah, because
No, no, people aren't willing to cite their, like you were saying earlier, people aren't willing to cite their sources. You know, they want to tell the story, but they don't want to do the work for it. The average amount of time that it used to take to research a story before writing out an article uh, used to be a couple days. Now, a journalist can just get online, check the Twitter feed, and write on from there.
yeah, but it's also down to the audience as well, being dumbed down. They they want things quick, and they don't want any work to do. They just want to see something. It's presented to them, and then that's it. They accept it and believe it. They don't do any critical analysis of it their own because they're too lazy to. There's there's no there's nothing padded out in investigative journalism these days. Well, it's not even investigative. In, on the TV and in the papers, it's not proper journalism because they haven't got a proper audience. You know, they would put the work into the articles back in the good old days because the audience, the majority of the time, if they found something wrong with that article and if their trust was betrayed, then it was the journalist ass that was on the line. But it's so superficial now, and nobody does their own analysis of the article. They just accept it and just move on to the next one. They don't want to. They don't want to look into it. They just take people's word for it. And that's the problem. They don't need to show any evidence because nobody's looking for it. The audience isn't looking for it. They don't want to know, basically. They just accept whatever comes across the airwaves.
Yeah, that's the symptom of what we're living around, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you think that'll change?
Well, I mean, I think it'll probably get a bit worse before it gets better, to be honest. I mean, it's partly down to how quickly people can access news these days. I mean, like you said, you can just go on a Twitter account or you can just go on a mainstream media's website. You can get the information so quick. And people are just so impatient these days. They've got no patience. It's like, whenever if a website takes longer than like 5 seconds to load, people would just shut it down. I think they did they did some research on it. If something doesn't instantly load, they get bored with it, and you're talking just a few seconds, but they're already bored with the website, and it affects how they use the site and their judgment of it. So they just want things quick, and they don't want to think about it. They just want it. They just want it access to it really, really quickly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Amazon, an online store, actually did their own research into it in their research and development programs because they were trying to decide, how much money to invest in, equipment, how much money to invest in, designing the web pages versus the actual hardware that they would run them off of. And they found that when somebody is going from one page to another to look at a product, I believe it was between 1 and 2 seconds. If it took between 1 and 2 seconds to load, the impulse factor for buying went down drastically if the person even waited for it to finish loading. A lot of times they found that people would just back out of it and continue shopping on something else or just leave the site entirely.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Amazon website, for instance, I mean, it is really simple. There's nothing flashy about it. There's no like bells and whistles to it. It's just the product, there's a bit of graphics, but I think maybe a lot of web shopping sites are like that, to be honest.
They are they're successful. Those that are successful, they design them that way for a reason.
Yeah, because
it's to get your money.
I've been on some terrible, terrible websites that sell things, and they're just overcomplicated. They take a long time for the pages to load, and I've never bought anything off them. Unless they've got something that I just cannot find somewhere else. If the site just doesn't look, and if it doesn't act responsively, then I don't use it. So I mean, I'm guilty of that as well, but I mean, I'm more patient with a website than the majority of people because, I don't have a smartphone, so I only access stuff when I want to.
Yeah. I didn't know you didn't have a smartphone.
Yeah, well, dumb phones, I call them. They just make people more dumb. But it's access to information. I mean, that's something that they've always wanted. People to get access to information very, very quickly. So, because people will form an opinion on that information very, very quickly as well.
Yes, it is. You're talking along the lines of something I've heard. Let me try to pull a source for this before I just go off randomly.
I'll see if we've got any questions.
Okay, excellent.
No questions. I think people must be busy elsewhere.
They may. Let's see. Let me see if I can find a few. So we've got the Daily Mail, New York Post, the Telegraph, as well as Business Insider that I can quote on this. Let me get to that juicy bit here. Okay. So there are a few articles starting at the Telegraph that state that Facebook is working on being able to basically read your mind. Mark Zuckerberg, and quoting the title, Mark Zuckerberg confirms Facebook is working on mind reading technology. The ability, the idea behind it is the ability to kind of communicate based on emotions or, let's see. And here's this quote: Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook's founder, has previously described telepathy as the ultimate communication technology. The ambitions of Facebook, though, they've been unclear. So it's kind of like they're kind of taking this route to be able to literally read your mind and communicate on emotions and that. I can say if where we are right now wasn't enough, I think I can draw the line and say that's too far, because flash communication, if we were supposed to be able to, read each other's minds, which is basically kind of how this technology would work, I think, oh man, it's a really rough spot to go to. Because, yeah, with a keyboard you can control what you're putting into a communication, into social media. We already know that they have keystroke capturing software, whether it's on a smartphone, Windows operating system, some, third-party free operating systems, and Apple. All of them do it. That's what, adaptive predictive typing is. It, stores a database of the things that you type, learns how you talk, and then based on what you've said previously in your sentence, it tries to predict, what you're going to continue to type. With that technology already in place, I don't know if I want a device to have access to what I'm thinking or how I'm feeling. That too far.
Yeah, it's way too far. But it's where they want to go. They're not going to be happy unless they can put into your mind and read your mind. They're doing it the long way around at the minute, through education. Because whenever you learn something, it changes your brain, and then your brain processes information differently based on what you've learned.
Right.
So they're doing it the indirect way by education, showing you whatever, getting you to learn something based on, someone's version of it. But if they could just do it directly into your brain, then they will. They'll find a way to do it. And same with reading your brain, reading your mind. You basically, they want to eventually just completely destroy all privacy. That's what it's down to. You're going to have no privacy at all because they could just wave some device over your head. And, instantly they would know what you're thinking.
Yeah. I think it's going to be necessary for a successful, all of the conspiracy theory type scenarios that I've been kind of laughing off because they simply sound ridiculous. For any of those to be successful, this would have to be the first implementation. Being able to know things that the best liar simply cannot hide. Being able to tell, where you go home to sleep, what your plans are going to be after a meeting. Back to the rudimentary things. Are there going to be thought crimes in the future?
There already is thought crimes.
Right, but it has to be expressed. People have to be able to deduct that you're thinking something. But if I think, oh man, I could just kill that guy, or, thoughts of violence with a device like this, who knows? Who knows what the possibilities are?
Well, I mean, I said there's thought crimes, but there's no such thing as thought crime. But the way that they word things now, it's it's basically saying that if you think a certain way, then and you express it in any sort of form, then it's basically what they're saying is that it's a thought crime to even think certain things, which is ridiculous because it doesn't exist, thought crime. But they're gonna try and make it exist, and then all they need to do is just convince the public that it does exist, and then hey presto, it does exist because the masses. It's what I keep saying, tyranny of the masses. You'll have a people that just accept it exists, and then that in itself makes it exist. And then it's people who think independently and critically who suffer.
It certainly is. It's
Well, I don't think I can see any questions, and I think the stream's gone on for long enough, so
certainly.
I think we'll end it for this week. But yeah, cheers for coming on, man, again. And
yeah, absolutely.
I think we do have some people watching, lurking about. So thanks for listening, guys. If you,
yeah, hey out there.
Yeah, hey guys, hey lurkers. Maybe we'll get some. I'm sure as time goes on, we'll get people actually asking, which is funny because I think the first time I did some tests on DLive, just to make sure that the stream was working, OBS was okay, and everything. And I think the actual first proper stream I did, and it was just me on it. I had 15 people in the channel. There was people asking questions.
Oh wow!
And then subsequent ones, nobody's asked anything. So, but I mean that's just the way it goes. I mean, but no, again, it's been a really good conversation. Well, I'll be back next week. We've got the CBRN special with Prepper Vet on the pre-recorded show, so that'll be out next week. I'll try and drum up some more people because I don't really advertise the DLive Prepper's Perspective, to be honest. So it is down to me. It's that the interaction's low at the minute, so I'll try and fix that.
Yeah. Well, it was a pleasure being on with you this week. So, thanks for the open invitation.
Yeah, no worries, man. So to anyone